I don't know that bit. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. It's great to be back. Please just double tap for the moment. Let's boost those numbers. Let's get some people in here. Today, we are discussing which God you might believe in and why. Please join the queue if you are up for the conversation. I'm not religious myself. I'm not really looking to talk to people at the moment who agree with me. I'm more looking for people who disagree with me. People who do believe in a God or gods. I'd really love to talk to you about it. Daniel, wonderful to see you, mate. I've been trying to follow you around TikTok a little bit. I think you've been having some great conversations, man. I love your work. Boom Cloud says, Daniel, what do you think is the worst, or who do you think is the worst apologetic? When you say what, do you mean like the worst apologetic argument? Or is that a typo and you meant to ask, who do you think is the worst apologetic? I'm not quite sure what you mean. Hello, everyone. Hey, kids. Lovely to see you. Lath says, from the start, we don't agree with you. Sure, no problem. Can you tell me exactly what it is that you think I'm wrong about from the start? That'd be great. Boomcloud says, yes, the worst argument. Yeah, sure. There are just so many terrible arguments for God. I think that one that frustrates me the most is God of the gaps. You know, the notion that just because someone might not have an explanation for some kind of natural phenomenon, that we should jump to the conclusion that God is responsible for it. You know what I mean? In the way that we used to jump to the conclusion that there was a God of volcanoes that decided when the volcanoes erupt. And the same way that we used to jump to the conclusion that there must be a God of the ocean that makes the waves. And, you know, there must be a God of the sun that pulls the sun across the sky and all that kind of thing. Wherever we don't know the answer to something, we just go, oh, that's God then. God does that. God is the answer to your question. When we know that's just lazy. It doesn't answer any question effectively. We know that volcanoes erupting and wave formation and the traversal of the sun across our sky, we know that there are perfectly natural, rational, observable, and explainable explanations. It's just that we didn't have those explanations before, right? Every time there's something that we don't have the answer for, if we just get real lazy and jump to the conclusion, oh, God's responsible for that. That's called the God of the gaps argument. And that one drives me crazy, man. That one drives me crazy. Because the same thing can be said about the creation of the universe, right? The creation of the universe is, for all intents and purposes, and by definition, a natural phenomenon. It is a phenomenon that we observe in nature. We have observed our universe coming to be. We don't have to jump to the conclusion that some kind of conscious entity chose to make it happen. We don't have any evidence of consciousness external of a brain. We've never observed consciousness exist independently of a brain. So why should we jump to the conclusion that this universe and the physical forces that drive its expansion and the way that it decays and entropies and continues to vibrate, everything's spinning, everything's just hurtling around. We don't have to jump to the conclusion that some kind of mind chose for that to happen. It could just as likely be the result of perfectly explainable forces that we just don't understand yet. You know? The God of the gaps argument, that one annoys me. There are a couple of people in here asking me to essentially prove that the universe came from nothing. I don't think the universe came from nothing. This is a common misconception amongst religious people. To say that all atheists or all non-religious people believe that the universe came from nothing is to simply not have any idea what you're talking about, basically. Physicists don't claim to know that the universe came from nothing. What physicists claim to be able to demonstrate is that the universe at one point was all compressed, was all located, rather, much, much closer to itself. It wasn't as spread out. It was just much, much more tightly packed into potentially a singularity, like what we describe at the center of a black hole. Something triggered a rapid expansion of the material that was packed into that singularity. Could it be a god of some kind did it? Yeah, of course it could be. Do we have proof that that's what did it? No, we don't have any proof of that kind of thing. Could it be multiple gods all coming to a decision together to start this universe? Of course it could be. It's just as likely that there were multiple gods than there are just one. We have no way of proving what exists outside of this observable universe or before the time that we can measure or prove. We just have no data about this kind of thing. So to jump to the conclusion that Yahweh did it, the God of the Bible, or Allah did it, the God of the Quran, or whichever God it is in Hinduism is responsible for the expansion of the universe, or whichever God in whichever religion you choose is responsible for it. We're just jumping to conclusions here about things we have no evidence of. Could it potentially be that there's some kind of God? Yeah, of course it could. It could potentially be that. But before I'm going to subscribe to that belief, I need to see some compelling evidence. Because all of these religions disagree with each other. They can't all be right. Hey, thank you, Anthony, so much. I genuinely appreciate that, mate. Thanks a lot. I hope that clarifies my frustration with the God of the Gaps argument. It's just not a good argument. Paul McLuth asks, are miracles enough? Can you describe a miracle to me that can't be explained by some other explanation? Because I've not heard of one yet. Boomcloud says, that was perfect, Daniel. Thank you. Hey, it's very kind of you. I'm really glad that you feel like I explained that nicely enough. I could keep going. The God of the Gaps argument really frustrates me. Daniel, who is another guy who does something similar to what I do on here, said that he can't stand the quote unquote look at the trees argument, where you might have spoken to a religious person before and asked them for like some evidence, and they've just said, look around you. All of this, the fact that anything exists, that's proof of God. That's just not good enough. Even if you were to settle for evidence that is just not clearly enough in support of that kind of claim, even if you were to accept it as proof of God, which God should we accept that it's proof of? There are literally thousands. There are literally thousands of gods that humans have invented over the course of human history. So if looking around and looking at the trees and looking at the stars and looking at your hand should be evidence enough that some God exists, well, which one? Which God of the thousands of gods that we've made claims about should we believe that that's evidence of? Corey Pope says there's only one God. Why should we believe that? What evidence do we have that there are any gods, let alone only one? All of the polytheists that I've ever spoken to, so the people who believe in multiple gods, all the polytheists that I've ever spoken to are just as convinced that there's obviously multiple gods as you seem to be, that there's obviously only one. It doesn't make any sense, mate. We don't have any proof of either claim being true. Akina Christ says, you are looking for real big trouble. Look, if trouble's looking for me, I'm right here. Madison White says, "You're never going to find evidence because you have a strong desire not to. So let your flesh something." I don't think you got to finish your I don't think you got to finish your comment. I have a strong desire not to find evidence. That's absolutely the opposite of what's true about me. I'm literally on here because I want to hear people's evidence for their God. If you think you have evidence that will convince me, I want to hear it. You know, I want to believe, to paraphrase Matt Dillahunty, a pretty smart guy, to paraphrase Matt Dillahunty, I want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. That's what I actually want. So if you can bring me some evidence that will convince me of the existence of one God or another, please, I really genuinely want to see it. Chaotic Dad says, "You won't listen to my evidence." Chaotic Dad, you sound like a troll to me. You know, that many emojis is never a good sign. Oh, here we go. Let's have a chat to Daniel. Daniel, for a couple of lives now, and we haven't gotten to have a chat yet. But before we have a chat, I do want to thank everyone so far for double tapping. Thank you for so many people being in here right now. Thank you for anyone who's gifted and subscribed already. It
Hello.
means a lot. I'm very, very grateful for it. Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
Amazing. I'm really well. Hey, look, before we get too deep into it, I just want to thank you so much for your time, as I see no good evidence of any kind of afterlife, meaning this time is the most valuable commodity I think any of us can ever have. Thank you for sharing. Do you
Mhm.
believe in a God?
I'm Roman Catholic.
Roman Catholic, so you believe in Yahweh and Jesus Christ?
Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. Can you tell us why?
Well, I was brought up Catholic, still am. Uh, my mom got me baptized because they didn't know. They thought that was best for me because I was a kid.
Yes.
Um, I don't blame them. I feel I'm happy to be Catholic, in my opinion. I think the reason why I believe in God is because God, in my opinion, I feel that He brings me hope, and He brings nurturing to me.
Got you. So do
Um,
you think that something bringing someone hope makes it true?
Not necessarily no,
I would say
but
almost definitely not, right? I mean, if
yes,
someone finds comfort in Hinduism, does that mean that Hindu becomes true? Hinduism becomes
no,
true,
not
excuse me?
necessarily no.
Right. So do you have other
Mhm.
evidence then, perhaps?
Well, I've had many dreams about God.
Okay. Do you think that having dreams about something makes it true?
Not necessarily no.
Again, I would
Again,
probably also say almost definitely not too, right? I could use
but again, why should
the
we
same
have to believe in
framework. Like if a
100%
Hindu,
truth?
if a Hindu had a dream about Shiva, does that mean that Shiva exists?
Not necessarily no, but let me ask you this question:
Hmm.
Why do we have to
Sure.
believe in 100% proof? That's my question.
Oh, you don't. You don't have to. What I'm saying is that I don't think you should believe in things that there's almost zero proof of, right? There is zero
Okay.
proof of any religion being uniquely accurate, right? We have no
So
proof
you think that there
that
is zero
Hinduism
proof
is
of
correct. We have zero proof of Catholicism or Islam or Scientology. We have zero proof of any of these things being correct. We have some evidence, but evidence is different to proof. Do you see the distinction between the two?
yes, no, no, no. I understand where you're coming from. I see where
Sure.
you're coming from with that. Um,
Yeah.
I do see where you're coming from with that. But the thing is though with Islam is completely is almost is kind of the same with Christianity. The thing is though with Islam is
No.
in my opinion is also a beautiful religion.
Have you
So
read the
wonderful
Quran?
religion. No, have you?
Yes, I have. I strongly disagree that it's a beautiful religion. I think it's violent, misogynistic. It is almost anti-humanity, basically. It's horrible. In the same way that you could read the Bible and you could cherry pick things from that text that sound nice and seem to be
So Jesus
somewhat
saying,
morally
so
integrous.
Jesus,
But if
so for
you do the
example,
same thing with the Quran, you get the same thing.
if I say something like, when Jesus said, what was it again? Love one another as I have loved you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
What do you take from that?
the way that Yahweh, because Jesus is Yahweh, remember, according to Christianity,
Yes.
the way that Yahweh loves us is often to commit genocide against us and to command us to kill each other, according to the Bible at least. The laws that Yahweh has also delivered to his chosen people, which is a big problem if you ask me as well, but his chosen people over the course of history include things like selling the victims of sexual abuse to their abusers. It includes the murder of children. It includes the stoning of people for working on the wrong day of the week and wearing the wrong kind of fabric and eating the wrong kind of foods. This is
All right.
Middle
All right.
Eastern mythology, right? This is Middle Eastern
Uh-huh.
mythology that was written roughly 2,000 years ago that I don't think describes a loving or deserving God at all, much
Okay.
less one that we can
Let me say
prove.
something now. My granny tells me this all the time when it comes to these type of things.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm just eating at the moment. I'm really hungry where I live.
Man, go
I
crazy.
haven't
Yeah,
eaten all
eat as
day.
much.
Um,
Dig in.
my granny tells me that a lot of originally the Bible was written in Aramaic,
Aramaic, yes.
Aramaic, yes. And so she says to me, no, for example, with the Book of Revelations, um, yeah, sure, we believe, a lot of Protestants believe that it's true. She said, no, it was a story that was written. See, she said it was a story that was written because they wrote it into the form of a story so that it could be hidden from the Romans, because the Romans would have killed them, would have killed the 12 disciples.
The Romans are the ones who disseminated modern Christianity the furthest.
Right.
Do you understand this? Like Christianity, like modern Christianity is ultimately Roman propaganda. They used it to control the smaller states that they took over as
Right,
they
right,
conquered much of Europe.
right. Do I think Christianity back then was good? No, I don't. But I think that there was beauty in Christianity, the part where Jesus preached to us, where he said, "Love one another as we have loved you." This guy says he's Roman
Yeah,
Catholic.
sure.
Yes, I did say I'm Roman Catholic.
But again, mate, like you're cherry picking here because whilst the Bible claims that Jesus of Nazareth,
Mm.
again, the Bible saying something is not proof of anything, but the Bible saying that Jesus of Nazareth said something along the lines of love each other, that to only look at that small passage whilst also ignoring the fact that Jesus was pro-slavery is simply to cherry pick the nice parts for your own sense of comfort. I mean, if you really
Can you tell me
agree,
how Jesus was pro-slavery?
sure, he explicitly told slaves that they were to treat their Christian masters especially well, but they were to also do it as their masters told them and to be thankful for what they gave. He also gave explicit instructions for exactly how slaves were to be traded and where they could be taken from and where they shouldn't be taken from. It's pro-slavery, my
Give me a
friends.
verse, please.
For the time, honestly, I can't give you a verse off the top of my head, but you can look. I encourage you to read the Bible. You can go and look into
I've
this
read the
yourself.
Bible in my time.
And you don't remember
But there was
Jesus
also,
saying these things?
but there's also the story of Exodus where there's also a story of Exodus where God asked Moses to free his people.
Yes, but you remember why Pharaoh said no?
Not exactly, no, because he was evil, yeah.
No, because Yahweh, according to the Bible, made him say no. He hardened his heart so as to force him to say no. And then he punished the firstborn of Egypt for the decision that he forced Pharaoh to make. This is according to the Bible, my friend. This God is a manipulative, violent, genocidal bully. We can't prove
Mm.
that it's real, but if it is real, then it's the worst leader that anyone's ever followed.
Okay. Interesting. I
We don't even have
understand where you're
proof. We
coming
don't even
from.
have proof that the Pharaoh that the Bible mentions actually even existed historically. We don't even have proof that that's true. We don't even have proof that Exodus happened. This is again, like I said,
Right.
man. If you, I'll frame it like this: do you believe Greek mythology is true?
To a certain extent, yes, not with the gods, but I do believe that Greek mythology plays a bit of a part in our world today. I believe the
No, no, no,
concepts
no,
of
no. I'm not asking whether you think it like influences the modern world or anything. I'm asking you, do you think that Greek mythology is accurate? Do you think these events and people existed
like you mean
or
the
are
gods
true
like
or
Zeus
really
and them. No,
happened?
not really, no.
Right. So
No, I don't
why
know.
do you believe ancient Palestinian mythology then? Because that's what the Bible is. It's Palestinian
No,
mythology.
it's Jewish actually. It's actually Jewish.
Well, it's an amalgamation, but Yahweh is originally from a Palestinian tribe. Well, what we call today Palestinian.
No, it's
It's
actually
an
Jewish, the one
amalgamation
that you're talking about.
of gods from smaller communities in that area together.
Jesus was a Jew.
It's essentially a plagiarism of earlier religions in that area centered around Palestine. So why do you believe Middle
Mm.
Eastern mythology, but you don't believe Greek mythology?
Because the reason why I believe it's true is because I find it more believable than any other religion right now.
Wow. Okay. What do you find believable exactly about Middle Eastern mythology?
Well, let's see. God did exactly what he did in the Bible. He destroyed the seas. Moses did exactly what he did in the Bible. He
No,
freed the
we don't have
people.
evidence of that. We don't have historical
He
evidence
did.
with that. No, we don't. That's not true. We don't have historical evidence that confirms that
Well, we
Moses
have
even
historical
existed.
manuscripts.
That's right, but we also have historical manuscripts that claim that Zeus impregnated a human woman, giving birth to Hercules. Why don't you
I
believe
think
that?
because you see, I don't believe that. I don't believe that that a a human can have powers. I only believe a God can have powers.
Why do you believe that?
Because God, even though He's all loving and all just, and He is a merciful God.
Hmm.
Um,
Which isn't true,
sorry,
but
excuse my aging. Excuse my aging.
all right,
I'm just trying
let's
to
just
think.
touch on this for a moment. To claim that Yahweh specifically, because I remember Yahweh is one of thousands of gods that humanity has existed over the course of history, or recorded history at least.
Mm-hmm.
To claim that he is all loving and all just and merciful, whilst also acknowledging that the Bible tells stories of him commanding the slaughter of children in neighboring tribes of the Israelites. How do you square that away? How do you honestly say that, like holding a straight face? I really don't know how you can justify that.
Wait, I've never. I don't think that's true. Where did
Okay,
you
well,
see that?
again, mate, I'm encouraging you to read the Bible. As an atheist to a Christian, specifically a Roman Catholic, I'm explicitly asking you to read the book that you say you believe, because all of the stuff that I'm talking about is in there. It's in your book. It's not even my book. It's your book.
Can you tell me which book it is?
I think what's that one? First Samuel's 15:3 or something. You know, I might be a bit off, but
Samuel,
it's
no,
the
but Samuel's based on historical events.
according to the Bible. Yes, but what I'm telling you is that the
No,
Bible is
and
not historically accurate. What
stop.
I'm saying is that if we treat the Bible as though it's historically accurate, and these things actually did
Again, you don't need the
happen.
Bible to
No,
be a
no,
good
no, no.
person.
Just listen. Just
That's what I
listen,
will
please.
figure.
Just listen, please. Okay. Well, that's an even bigger problem for you then, and we can come back to that. But just listen for a moment. Even if we do pretend, because that's what we'd be doing here, even if we did pretend that the Bible was historically reliable and contains no errors, despite the fact that it contradicts itself many times as well, which makes it even less likely to be accurate. But even if we did pretend that the Bible was historically accurate, how can you honestly say that you support the decisions made by a God who, not even just one time, but multiple times, commands the slaughter of children?
Honestly, never knew he did that.
Right. Okay. So again, I really strongly encourage any religious person in here. There's 200 people in here right now. If you are Christian, please read the Bible. It's the quickest way to stop being a Christian. Back to something else that you just said, which is an even bigger problem for your moral compass, especially if you're saying that God is all just and all
My
knowing and
my
all loving and all
apologies.
these
I
things.
never knew.
If you if you say something,
Um,
if you say something like, you don't need to believe the Bible to be a good person, or you don't need to follow the Bible to be a good person, or anything like this.
no, of course not.
You have just demonstrated to yourself that you don't need this book in order for you to decide what's right and wrong on your own. You don't need a God telling
Correct.
you what you think is acceptable or unacceptable. So, can you tell me why else you might think you might need this belief in this God? Is it to get into heaven,
Well,
perhaps?
the reason why I think I only really love Jesus' teachings. That's the only thing. I
Including
love
including his
Jesus'
pro
teaching. I
including
love
his
his teaching that
pro-slavery,
he loves one another. That he's
including
saying
his doctrine on slavery, because that's Jesus' teaching according to the
no, not
Bible.
only slavery. I don't think he was pro-slavery.
Okay, well, again, if you don't think that Jesus was pro-slavery, then you're telling me that you don't believe the Bible is accurate, because the Bible says Jesus was pro-slavery. So do you or do you not
Of course, the Bible is not
agree
accurate. It's
with what
got its
Jesus taught?
contradictions. It was written 2,000 years ago. It was written 2,000 years ago.
Okay, cool. So how do you decide what the Bible is
I
accurate about and
question
what it isn't?
everything.
No, just answer my question, please. How do you determine what it is that's in the Bible that's accurate and inaccurate?
What do you mean?
Well, you've just told me that you don't think everything in the Bible is accurate, and I'm agreeing with you wholeheartedly. What I'm telling you
No,
now,
of
what
course
I'm
not, because I
asking
don't
you to
believe
do
in
right
sola
now,
scriptura. I believe in.
right, just hold on, hold on. What I'm asking you now is to tell me what's the process that you follow in order to determine which parts of it are accurate and which parts of it are not accurate. What's your epistemology, basically? What's your epistemology regarding how you know which parts are true and which parts aren't?
Well, I feel Jesus' teachings are true, and I feel that
Including
not whatever
slavery?
suits me necessarily. I feel that Jesus is. No, I don't feel that Jesus was pro-slavery. I don't think that's
Well,
true at
hold
all. I
on.
think you
Do you
just
do you
took that
think,
out
Daniel,
somewhere. But again,
Daniel, do you think that feeling like something isn't true means that it isn't true?
no, I don't. I don't think that was true.
Okay, so why did you say that then? Because I agree with you. I don't think that feeling as though something is untrue means that it's untrue.
Why would Jesus be pro-slavery?
Well, I don't think that he likely was. What I think is much more likely is that the Romans wrote the Bible and they included the main character being pro-slavery so that they could continue justifying slavery to their ever-increasing population as they dominated Europe at the time. The Bible is Roman propaganda. This is like well understood information.
Again,
The Bible was
again,
compiled by the Romans
again.
and disseminated across Europe as they took over smaller settlements. We don't even have proof that Jesus of Nazareth actually existed.
Mm.
All right, let's go back.
Do
Let's
you
go back a
honestly
step.
think Jesus himself? Do you honestly think Jesus himself would want slaves? Do you honestly think that?
Mate, lots of people back then loved slaves. Do you not understand? Like, we're talking about 2,000 years ago, my friend. Like, slavery was the jam. People were all about slavery back then. If you could get yourself a slave, you were the coolest kid on the street, right?
I hate
Everyone was pro,
slavery. I
everyone was
think it's
pro-slavery.
disgusting. I think it's wrong.
I absolutely agree with you. But according to the Bible, Jesus doesn't agree with you. That's what I'm telling you. Like, this is cut and dry, man. Like, if you haven't read the Bible, I'm encouraging you to read the Bible.
You see, the difference is I'm willing to read the Bible again and again and again, but I'm also willing to read the church fathers and look. I'm also willing to look at research-based scholars' information. That's what
Are
I'm
you
also.
also
That's
are
what
you
I'm also.
also Sure. Are you also willing to read the Quran and the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, or are you only willing to read the book that's
I've never read the Quran. I respect Islam for who they are. I respect every single religion out there because that's just who I am as a person.
do you respect that the murder or the execution of people who leave a religion should be made law? Because that's in Islam.
Say
That's
again?
Islamic law. Do you respect making the execution of people who leave a religion and speak out against it law? Do you respect that? Because
I don't
that's what
think
Islam,
that's.
that's just a random thing that Islam teaches.
I don't think that's true. I don't
Okay,
think I can't. No,
again,
please, no.
again, as an atheist, I'm encouraging you to read these books. Read the Quran, please. Because the Quran explicitly states that the
No, I
punishment,
get what
the
you
the
mean, but
punish. Okay, well, I really don't think that you should respect these religions, man. I really don't. I've got friends who are Muslim, right? I've got friends who are Christian. I've got friends who are
I just
Catholic. I've got
don't think
friends of
it's
all
right for
different
us to
faith.
judge
Hold
their
on, man. Hold
religion.
on.
That's what I'm
Hold on,
saying.
man. Hold on, man. Hold on. I've got friends of all of these different faiths as well. I've got nothing but love for them. A lot of them are beautiful people. The problem is, a lot of them have also not actually read the books that they're saying they think are true. But I have. And I point this stuff out to them, and then they go and read it and they go, oh, yeah, it actually does say that. What am I going to do about this? And I'm still talking to them about it to this day. You know, it's an ongoing conversation I'm having with these people. You don't have to respect someone's beliefs. There are people who hold revolting beliefs. You can love the person, but you do not have to
Mhm.
respect their beliefs. You understand that there are
Mhm.
groups of people around the
No,
globe
I
and
get
throughout
that.
history. There are groups of people around the globe and throughout history who justify every behavior, right? There are groups who are in support of sex
Mhm.
slavery. There are groups who are in support of genocide. There are groups who are in support of pedophilia. There are groups who are in support of all kinds of behavior. You don't have to respect people's beliefs, mate. You can love the person
Mhm.
as much as you love anyone else.
It's
You
just
don't have to
scary
respect
because I
someone's
just feel
beliefs, mate.
like I've I've got
Oh, I'm sorry, mate. You're breaking up there. I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
many.
Can you hear me, mate?
Just give me 2 seconds. I just my internet is cutting out. It keeps cutting out because I'm in a country with really bad internet. I'm in South
Got
Africa,
you.
so I have load shedding now.
Yeah, I could tell. I could tell. Hey,
The
had a cowboy. I could tell you're a
weather is
Safa.
just
I love this.
Oh,
I'm a big
okay.
fan of the South African accent. I think it's terrific.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely.
I feel like I do a pretty good version of it myself, but I won't disgrace myself on the internet
Go for
trying
it,
to pull
go
it
for
off.
it, go for it. No, I'm South African, Italian, and Portuguese. I've always wanted to hear people try it. Brilliant.
Well, look, perhaps for the rest of this discussion, I can try to speak in a South African accent, and you can tell me how you feel about it, whether you think it's authentic or whether you think it's a little bit of a heck, or maybe it's lekker, bro. Perhaps it's lekker.
Ah, almost there, almost there, almost there. It's lekker, brie. Like my brie is lekker, ne? Ja. En 'n broodjie en 'n
Ja, ja, ja.
braai.
Ja, my bro. Both lekker,
There we
bro.
go, there we
Sorry,
go,
there's
there we go.
a bit
Thanks
bit of
there, bro.
swear.
I'd say, there we go. I'd say, there we go, there we go.
It's a terrific accent. I'm a big fan of it.
Oh, yeah.
Look, I really do want to clarify though, mate. You can love someone like my friends who are Islamic. I love them. They're lovely people,
Hmm.
but they're scared to admit that
Yeah.
their text is off. Their text is horrific because they're scared of being punished. Basically, they're scared of being punished by God. You know, the reality is that we can't prove that any God exists. There's no proof that you will be punished. There is no proof of hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
This sheer terror that religion tries to implant in the mind of a religious believer so that it can manipulate their behavior while they're still alive. This fear is at the root of most people's religious behavior. There's no proof of any hell that you should fear. There's no proof of any God that you should fear speaking out against. Like, I will very, very comfortably in front of 250 people and in front of whatever God might or might not exist out there. I'm very comfortable saying, if you exist and you are the God that the Bible describes, then fuck you. You are a violent, manipulative, cruel bully. I have no respect for you. And I have no fear whatsoever that I'll be punished for saying that, because we have no proof that they're real, nor that their hell is. And I don't think you should have that fear either.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Muslims here that are not gonna want to speak to you.
I don't mind. I speak to Muslims all the time. I
Mm.
speak to Muslims all the time, and the Quran is the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just that it was just compiled 600 years later. It's the same thing though. You know,
Yeah,
it's not the last religion ever made. You know, there've been more since then. Religions pop up all the time.
yeah,
They start off as little cults and then they grow in
mm.
popularity over time. Often
Mm.
after the leader dies. It's often only after the leader of the cult dies that a cult really takes off in popularity, and then it becomes a religion over time.
Yeah.
Um, and this can be said. This is the same of the cult of Jesus of Nazareth. Here's something that maybe you didn't know about, but which is going to help you understand where Christianity came from, or at least how it took off. At least when Jesus of Nazareth reportedly died, again, we don't have proof that it really happened, but when he reportedly died, there was a small cult of his followers that persisted after his disappearance, right?
Hmm.
They remained relatively small in size. They were still active in the Middle East, but they were relatively small in size for a little while until many years later, Emperor Constantine's mother, so at that time, the Emperor of Rome, Emperor Constantine's mother joined the cult of Jesus of Nazarene, right?
Hmm.
When Constantine found out about this, hey, thank you for the love heart. I appreciate it. When Constantine found out about this, he recognized just how powerfully and just how profoundly this religious belief had taken control of his mother's worldview. She was all of a sudden, she was following these rules. She was behaving differently. Constantine recognized that if he could enforce Christianity, if he could make it the state religion, he could control people's behavior much more effectively, not perfectly, but much more effectively, much more reliably. When you're someone in a position of power and authority, religion is a very, very useful tool in your arsenal for steering the masses towards voting for this or voting for that. This still happens to this day. It's not just
Yeah.
the Romans that recognized the power of religion to influence and control the masses. They literally
Yes.
still do it in
Mm.
many Middle Eastern countries. They're getting away with a fair amount of it in the US right now. It happens even it happens throughout Africa. It's still happening
Yeah.
to a much lesser degree throughout Europe in some countries as well.
Yes.
Russia right now is strongly religious. And the people in power love that. If they can get the people that they need the support of to believe something that benefits them and allows them to manipulate them more easily, they want that to continue. These are not necessarily nice people. These are people who want to manipulate and control others for their own benefit, right? Religion allows you to do that. This is at the heart of the birth of every cult that's ever started up. The desire to control others, the desire to feel power over another person's actions.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Look, we don't have to keep going. I'm getting the
It
vibe.
is a lot to take into. It is a lot to take into account right
Yes.
now. It is a lot to take into account right now. I'm definitely going to do a lot more research on the Bible and that, definitely a lot more.
I
But
encourage that.
I think it's not so easy at the end of the day, because I feel that a lot of my experiences have happened through being a Catholic, and I don't really want to give up being a Catholic. I think
Yeah.
a lot of I had my first Holy Communion when I was a little boy, when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Um, I do feel, of course, I question everything. My gran even tells me, it's okay to question the church. It's okay to question. You mustn't be scared to question anyone. She still questions to this day. And she says, with me questioning all the time, because she's also a very, very interesting person to talk to. But when it comes to Protestants, and me and her just have such a fight, because she just can't deal with what is being said when I'm on the Protestant lives and how they treat me as a Catholic and things like that. She just can't stand it. So she's just had a she's also just had enough of that too.
Sure. I mean, me too. I've had enough of that kind of thing too,
She's
because
Roman Catholic
these are
herself, and she's a very devoted Catholic herself, and she has explained so many things to me that literally have helped me with Catholicism and things like that. And she's saying you need to learn your faith before you need to first learn your faith.
yes,
You know?
I absolutely agree. I encourage people to actually study their religion.
Mm.
Study it closely. And
Yeah,
when you start to notice things that you don't believe, don't just gloss over it. Pay attention to that feeling of
mm.
recognizing an inconsistency, recognizing a
Yeah,
loophole that someone's trying to force you to ignore.
yeah,
Recognize the morality that it's trying to force you to accept, despite the fact that you know you disagree with it. I also encourage
correct.
the study of one's own religion, but don't ignore that feeling that you get when you recognize that something's off. I'll
Mm.
put it to like, I was born into a religious household too, right? I was raised
Hmm.
religiously, strictly religiously, to be fair. multiple members of my family were missionaries and priests and pastors. I'll put it that
Yes,
way,
yeah.
right? I was
Mm-hmm.
raised in a religious community, heavily involved in the church, and
Mm.
I always felt as though something was off.
Yes,
So,
yes.
just to clarify, you can be born into it and you can really
Mm.
feel as though it's true and it still not actually be true. Do you know what
Yeah.
indoctrination is?
Yes, yes, I do. My
Right.
mom, my mom said to me, she said, even though you're baptized as a Catholic, you have the choice to leave to not be a Catholic anymore. You have the choice.
I disagree. On a technicality, the truth is that we can't prove that anyone chooses what they believe. What we
Mm.
have evidence of is that belief is a phenomenon of the mind that is affected by the evidence that has been presented to it. Consider this.
Mm.
If you're born into uh, if you're born into a Muslim family,
Mm.
your family and your community are going to encourage you to believe Islam from the get-go. They're not even necessarily likely to teach you about other religions at all. They're probably just going to tell you, oh, yeah, no, Allah looks after us, and Muhammad was his final prophet, and, Muhammad split the moon in half, and, the sun set one time in a muddy puddle because the Quran said so, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're just going to tell you things about Islam. And if no one
Mm.
ever comes along and presents you with competing information, or proof
Yeah.
that any of those claims are inaccurate or outright false, you're going to continue believing that that's what's true until someone does challenge you. This is how
Yeah.
belief works. If no one ever challenged me about my Christianity, if no one ever presented me with any evidence that conflicted with the worldview that I was taught to believe from childhood, well, by definition, I'd still believe Christianity. That's how belief works. You actually don't get to choose what you believe. We reach tipping points, though, is what happens. We reach
Mm.
tipping points when the evidence that we've been presented with so far contradicts itself to a point where we have to just stop and actually look at it all a bit more closely and
Mm.
see how much weight we should actually be giving it. Imagine presumably you were taught that Santa Claus is real, right?
Mm.
Right. And
Yeah.
until someone pointed out to you some of the inconsistencies in the doctrine of Santa,
Hmm.
you continued to believe it, didn't you? You couldn't help it. Your parents
Yeah.
probably even planted evidence, right? They probably took a bite out of the cookie that you left out on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
They probably even said from Santa on
Hmm.
the tag of your presents, right? The same thing happens with religious belief.
Yeah.
Eventually you start recognizing that the evidence is actually not very good at all. The evidence is really poor. You're no longer convinced of it. And then you stop believing. But you can't help that.
Mm.
Belief is not a conscious choice. We don't get to consciously decide what we believe. Can I ask you
Mm.
to consciously start believing that 2 plus 2 equals 5?
Don't really think 2 plus 2 equals 5. We know it equals 4.
Well, hold on. I'm just asking you to believe it on faith. Can you do that?
No, I can't do. No, because no, I can't do something like that because that's evidence. We have evidence 2 plus 2 equals 4.
That's exactly right. Not only do we have evidence that 2 plus 2 equals 4, not 5, we have no evidence to the
Mm.
contradictory either. Or to the contrary, I should say. We have no
Yeah.
evidence that anything else but that is true. This is not the case with something
Mm.
like Santa or Christianity or any of these other religions.
Yeah.
There are lots, there's lots and lots and lots of evidence to the contrary of all of these religions. Again, we can't help what we believe.
Mm.
What we can do is we can expose ourselves to information that contradicts what we might already believe. And over time,
Yeah.
if we learn how to actually sift through that information, then we start to believe things that are actually more likely than what we've been taught so far. Have you heard of epistemology before?
Yes, I have.
Good, excellent. Epistemology is the branch of philosophy concerned with knowledge.
Correct. Yes.
With within epistemology, uh, disciplines like logic, which includes formal
Mm.
logic, informal logic, uh, the study of proper argumentation and logical
Yeah.
fallacies as well.
Mm.
I
Mm.
strongly encourage you not only to actually read the Bible, but also to study a little more epistemology.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you do or don't, that's ultimately up to you. But as someone who used to believe things almost identical to you, I
Mm.
really strongly encourage you to. You might find your life changing in some pretty
Thank you. Appreciate that.
important ways pretty quickly.
Mm. No, I agree with that. I get where you're coming from, and I'm a very, very a uh, very big person in science. I love science so much. I love learning science.
Okay,
Even though I can't study it because I didn't do it through school, so I try and learn through YouTube and courses and that at the moment.
got you.
And I've always been into physics. I've definitely always been into physics because I find physics
Excellent.
super, super interesting for the
Very.
universe. And now and then what I'll do is I'll literally uh watch something on how with physics I'll literally try and look at lectures, university lectures on the internet and things like
Yeah.
that. I just think that's something that I've always wanted to do.
Me
You know,
too.
I
Me
find
too.
that really,
Honestly,
really fun.
I'm with you, mate. We share a passion. I love doing that
Mm,
exact same thing. Let me ask you this. If you really are a fan of science and the scientific method, and you value
mm,
scientific inquiry as an epistemological framework,
hmm.
do you believe in transubstantiation?
You mean transgender?
No. So the doctrine within Catholicism that upon being blessed,
Hmm.
the bread or the cracker presented at communion not just figuratively becomes the flesh of Christ, but literally becomes the flesh of Christ. Do you believe that's true from a scientific perspective?
From a science perspective, no, not really, but I do believe that in a faith perspective. I do
Do you
believe
know
that
what
in a
the
spiritual way. The Eucharist, yes, the Eucharist, I'm very, very fond of the Eucharist
do
and
you
understanding the Eucharist.
do you know what faith means?
To believe without proof, yes.
To pretend to know something despite not having proof that it's true. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
If you pretend to know that transubstantiation is true, despite the fact that there's no proof that it is,
Mm.
but you also claim to value science, how do you square those two positions at the same time?
I'm not sure exactly. I don't know exactly how I don't know exactly.
I mean, I really would love for you to arrive at the realization on your own, but I can give you
Mm.
a bit of a like a head start here. Transubstantiation is nonsense. It's it's complete nonsense. It's not true.
Hmm.
It's basically a compliance. It's a way to measure compliance in the faithful. If you can get people to say out loud, I believe transubstantiation is real, despite the fact that there's no proof of it being true, then that's a way for you as a religious leader to know
Mm.
just how deeply you've got your hooks in to someone in your congregation.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. I'm gonna actually talk to my grand about this. He's much more knowledgeable about Catholicism than me at the moment.
Cool,
And
man. I really do encourage conversation about this thing. I think that the whole, you know, you shouldn't talk about religion or politics at the dinner table thing is a bad idea. I think they're the
mm,
two things that we need to talk about the most, in my
yeah.
opinion.
No. I look at Christianity as more as a theology perspective, because I also just love theology.
Me
I've
too. Me
always loved
too.
theology.
Studied it at
Um,
university, you know. I'm with you. I think
oh
it's
wow,
fascinating stuff.
no, that's interesting.
The thing is,
That's very.
though, I've also studied multiple theologies, right? There's
Hmm.
Muslim theology, there's Hindu theology, there's Buddhist theology, there's Zoroastrian theology, there's Jain
Mm,
theology, there's Sikh theology, there's so many different theologies.
yeah.
I encourage studying all of them, as many as you can be
Mm,
bothered.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Another question I want to ask you just before I go, do you feel that
Sure.
for an imagination, because I'm not going to have a lot of time because I'm waiting for uh, I'm um I'm waiting for something at the moment. I'm waiting for my login results for university, so I don't have a lot of time to stay.
Sure, man.
What what I do want to say is, do you think that when it comes to imagination, when people have their imagination. Do you think you should limit their imagination, or should they be able to explore their imagination?
I think imagination is fantastic. I think
Okay.
that being able to explore your own imagination
Mm,
as far as you'd like is a wonderful thing. I encourage
mm,
it. I think that imagination is essentially the source of creativity. You know, the ability
yeah.
of the human mind to imagine things that we do not yet have in front of us. I
Yeah.
think
No,
that's
no, no.
really important.
I
I
get
think
that.
that's
I get
really,
that.
really powerful.
I get that. No, I definitely get that. I think that is really, really important. Anyway, man, it was lovely speaking to you. I wish you um the best in with your journey, and I hope you don't get so many angry people now that are gonna jump up on you. So yeah, I wish
Man,
you the best, man.
religious people being angry at me is just what happens here. This is just the norm.
Mm,
I feel the same, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. As I said at the start, I really don't think there's any afterlife, man. I think this is it. I think your time is the most valuable thing that any of us have ever had or ever will
yeah,
have. So thank you so much for sharing some of it with us, man. I mean it.
thank you so much. No, no, of course, anytime. Have a wonderful night.
You too, man.
Bye
Peace
bye
and
now.
love. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Good chat. I enjoyed that. He's a nice guy. I talk about this a lot. Hey, thank you so much. I talk about this a fair bit, you know, that religious people, they're not stupid. Religious people are not stupid. Religious people are not evil. Religious people don't deserve less respect or to be treated with less dignity. It's just not, it's not what I think. It's just not what I believe. We can't help what it is that we believe. So that I mean, if that's how I feel, which is really how I feel, then I can't have anything but love for someone like Daniel Lee who comes up here and he's honestly just here to have a sincere conversation with me and to talk about the things that he believes. And he's letting me express my opinions in return. You know, that was a great conversation. That was a really, really good guest. Like I said, Daniel, I'm very grateful for your time, man. Thank you so much for it. Come back anytime. I've just realized what the time is. I got to go. I got to take off. I got to get out of here. This was really nice, though. It was really, really nice. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This was a cool time. I feel a bit bad. There's like 230 people in here right now. But while you're all here, please follow. I try to go live every night, if not every second night. And I try to go for like an hour or 2 hours at a time. Usually the conversations are just as good as this. Um, Sometimes they're a bit wilder. Sometimes they're a little bit tamer. But either way, they're always really, really good. It's a fantastic community here. We're on our way to 9,000. What are we at? 8,951. So we're like, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We're like 50 followers away from hitting 9,000. And then it might only be a couple of weeks until we hit 10K, which would be so exciting from my perspective. But everyone who's in here so far is just awesome. The chat section is always a really, really engaging place to be. Honestly, the only time I've ever looked at comments and been like, hey, I might have to get moderators in here was last night. Up until last night, no one's ever been racist or sexist or anything in this chat. It's a really, really cool place to be. So if you take any interest in this kind of subject matter, please follow. I'd love to have you in the community. It really is so much the success of this community or this conversation really is so much more down to you, in my opinion. I'm up here having the conversation, but the reality is that the numbers that you guys make up by either following or double tapping or even just sticking around to listen in for a bit, all of these numbers tell TikTok's algorithm that people are wanting this and they send more people here. And that's really what we want. We just want people in here listening, being part of the conversation, being heard, listening in to other people who disagree with them as well. It really is so important that we have this conversation because it's just not a conversation that many people are actually having in the way that I think we should. I think it's a very important topic to go over. So if you're at all interested in following, please do. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your patronage. But having said all of that, I got to go. I got to take off. Thank you so much for all of these likes. Thank you for the gifts as well and for the subscriptions tonight as well. Just on the topic of gifts and subscriptions, I'm trying to save up at the moment for a better streaming rig. I've started up a YouTube channel as well, which you can follow if you go into my profile and hit the little Instagram icon and follow my YouTube link. I started up a YouTube and I've just been uploading these conversations just unedited for people who've like come in halfway and want to get the first half of it, or people who have subscribed but have like missed the live stream or something, but any financial support that I get through here by either gifting or subscriptions, I'm trying to save it up and just put it towards like a decent streaming rig, maybe like a desktop and some good software, and I can start actually putting together like some content reaction vids and that kind of thing. I'd really, really love to be putting that out there. It's the kind of content that I really wish someone was making about this topic when I was a kid. It really would have helped. It would have made just such a massive difference in my childhood. And to be that kind of influence in some other young religious person's life, I mean, that's just my goal, A couple of subscribers asking, can I add the link to my YouTube in my link tree? It should be, yeah. If you go into my profile and look for the little Instagram icon below my profile picture, if you tap that, there should be a YouTube link. There's an Instagram link, but there should also be a YouTube link that pops up there too. I think I'm at like 25 subscribers or something right now, like almost no one, but it's still 25 people more than zero, which is incredibly humbling. If you do go and watch a video over on the channel, please just leave a comment, even if it's just like, you're leaving me a thumbs up or something, whatever. It all helps to just spread the message because the algorithm just sees that as engagement and it just spreads it more, So anyone who can be bothered engaging with any of my content at all in any way, very, very thankful to you. I really appreciate it. Hey, thank you so much, Azana. It means a lot. It really does. Thank you so much for your time, my friends. Thank you so, so much. I see no proof of an afterlife. I think this is it. Which means, in my mind, that your time is the most valuable commodity that you will ever have, that I think anyone has ever or will ever have. For sharing some of that precious, precious time with me, I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you so much. I really hope that it proves to be an investment and not a waste, you know. Please enjoy the rest of your day, your night, your week, your month, your year, your decade, your century, your millennia. Fingers crossed, you know, it'd be pretty cool to live for 1,000 years, at least, I think. I'll give you the 10-second countdown for anyone who still wants to follow before I cut it off. And we'll see how many likes we can get to. Get ready to tap like crazy, all right? We're at 20. We'll start from 24K. Ready? I'm counting down in just a moment. Once we hit 24K, there we go. All right, 10, 9, tap, 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 8, 7, 6, 5. Look at it go. That's crazy. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Look at that. 2,500 likes in 10 seconds. You beautiful, beautiful people. MashaAllah, Allahu Akbar, and God bless.